Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Common Ground, and I'm Jason Downs. Welcome to a place where we can all agree on the important stuff. It's good to have you here. Today is November 9th, 2 days after our president elect Joe Biden was announced on Saturday, a day of relief for democracy and the American people. Trump has become the fourth president in the past century to lose re election. He's in the same class as Hoover, Carter, and H.W. Bush. Here to talk with us today about all of this and more is one of our favorite guests, attorney, activist, and author Monica Harris. And we also have back again by popular demand Nana Goat, my adopted grandmother, for our What the World Needs Now segment. You won't want to miss that. She did very well abiding by the FCC rules last time, I thought. So I look forward to hearing what she has to say after the election. But first, a shout out to one of our wonderful sponsors, Denny and Company LLP, certified public accountants. They make your life less taxing. Reach out to Matt Denny. Actually, I was at his office the other day. It's beautiful. I think, you should make an appointment just to check out this office right in downtown Santa Clarita, Valencia there. Anyway, for all your accounting needs, just reach out to DennyLLP.com or call 661-286-8860. Denny and Company, they make your life less taxing. And now it's my pleasure to have Monica Harris back on the show. How do you do, my dear?
Hey, Jason. Thanks for having me back. It's great to be here.
It's always a pleasure. You're an author, an activist, attorney. You graduated from Princeton University and Harvard Law School. Monica posts articles on her website, letsgetunplugged.com. Her book, Reality Bites, Insights on Bridging the American Divide, is available on all major outlets right now, and I highly recommend it. Great book. Monica, thanks for being here. Always a pleasure. So,
thank you, Jason.
Right up until they announced the projected winner, okay, on Saturday. And again, it's important to note that the AP has done this and for how many years, right? They based on math and statistics. When it reaches that point where an opponent can no longer catch up to their challenger, they usually project a winner, right? So this is how it works. It's how it's always worked. There were Trumpers on the streets right here in Valencia holding signs saying, honk if you think Dems cheat. Honk if Dems cheat. There have been no significant instances of fraud or corruption surrounding this election. I know that there will be the odd anomaly here and there. Most of them were probably even honest mistakes. Or were rectified in real time, but there have been no significant instances. It was the first time that I felt like watching. I don't know how you felt, but I felt like watching that I was really getting to understand the process for the first time and seeing it play out in real time. I mean, they have Republicans and Democrats and independents watching these poll workers at all times across the country. And anyone at any time is encouraged to speak up and say, hey, no, this doesn't look right, this doesn't feel right. And in a few instances, they did. And like I say, it was rectified, or it will be tried in court. But for the most part, there were no significant instances. No alarm bells were raised by anyone involved in the process, aside from people outside the process. Right? I mean, notoriously, the president, who has been making false and baseless claims about our election process for months now, so we were kind of used to it. And as a result, though, we have an even more divided America. Those that actually believe this election was somehow stolen. And I don't know. I mean, look. We have grown men and women, leaders, senators who refuse to acknowledge a president-elect. Has that ever happened in your lifetime? Because I certainly don't remember anything like that.
Yeah, I actually do remember in 2000, I think it was Bush v. Gore. Yes. If you recall, it all came down to one state, Florida, and for 35 days, you'll have to fact check me on this, but for 35 days, Al Gore was considered president-elect, and we know that changed at the very end. Look, I don't know how all this is going to play out. I mean, listen, there are so many allegations being made now. Who knows? It's like you said, it has been like unlike anything we've ever seen, and certainly in recent history. But I think what is so distressing to me, Jason, is that when I reflect on what's happened over the last year, and especially the last month, I have never been more disappointed in who we are and how we're treating each other. And I think a lot of us are asking right now, after this election, how do we move forward together? And I think the answer will depend on how we choose to keep seeing one another. And I think I mentioned to you when we spoke a while ago that there's a quote I read a few days ago, and I actually posted it on Facebook the other day, that gets to the heart of what I think is causing a lot of the divisiveness we're seeing now. And it's, I am way less concerned with who you vote for than I am with how you treat the people who vote differently than you do. And I think we're on this gaping divide right now, Jason, because we're defining and even shaming people based on the way they vote. So last week I read a story in Medium, a post by a poll worker who went to the heart of Trump country in a Nebraska town, in the middle of nowhere, on election night. And he'd been prepared to hate these people. He'd been prepared to see violent, just despicable people. But 99.99% of the people that he met there were kind and respectful, and they were voting for a man that this poll worker despised. And he didn't know what to make of it. He was completely confused by what he had experienced because it was a reality that he hadn't been prepared for. He didn't even know existed. And so the reason I'm saying this, Jason, is because we haven't known each other a long time, but you know that I live in a state that's 92% white, and I've lived here in Montana for almost a decade now. And that's after living all of the rest of my life in California. And what I've learned, the epiphany I've had, is that here's what we're missing in this culture of outrage. There are so many good people on both sides. And I know this isn't what many people want to hear right now, because we all want to paint people on the other side with a brush. You're good and evil, you're right or wrong, you're pro-democracy or you're pro-fascism. But that's not true. It's absolutely not true. If I go on Facebook and I tell friends, good people on both sides, I'll hear from my Democratic friends, what about the white supremacists? If I say that to my Republican friends, well, what about Antifa? And Jason, I think that's the core of the problem now. We're defining each side by the worst, most fringe elements among us, and we're missing all the good people in between. And I think it's happening because of social media, mostly. Also the mainstream media, but social media is killing us.
Look. I mean, I could not agree with you more that there are mostly good people in this country, whether you're Republican or Democrat. I could not agree with you more. I know many of them, just like you know many of them. And you talk about this a lot in your book, obviously, which I think is a wonderful and beautiful point. Once we actually get to know people, whether they're Muslims, whether they're black, whether they're from Montana, whether they're from Los Angeles, we generally want the same things and we value the same things. So you're absolutely right. And I think this is being exacerbated on Facebook. However, can we agree, can we agree that when a leader, okay, in this case, the current president, looks at a neo-Nazi little altercation in Charlottesville, okay? They're bearing torches, they're hurling racial slurs, whether it's about Jews, whether it's about African Americans, and he stands up and says there are good people on both sides of this altercation. I think that's where the line has to be drawn. We can't stand beside people who believe that whites are superior to any other race. We can't stand beside people who hate Jews just because they're a different religion than Christianity or what have you. So I think that's where we have to make that distinction. and a leader of this country, especially this country, a country as diverse as America, cannot stand up there. And I think the American people called him on that this past week. Obviously, the majority of this country still believes this, that cannot stand. That cannot stand. However, I mean, so can we agree on that, or is that something that you feel, you know, are there finer points in there that I'm missing, or can we agree on that?
Well, Jason, I'm always looking for the finer points. That's why you have me on your show.
Well, of course.
Okay.
That's one of the things I love about you. So am I missing
right,
something there? Is there a detail in there that we need to look at a little closer? I mean, and say, hey, it applies to neo-Nazis and white supremacists as well?
No, what I think I'd like to point out is that, and it's something I try to express a lot in my writing, which is a lot of you listened to Trump's soundbite, okay, and you heard, and I'm not defending Trump, okay. I want everyone out here to understand that everything I say in my book, everything that I say on your show, I come from a place of wanting to defend democracy and the principles upon which this country is founded, okay? Mm-hmm. So when you hear that soundbite about Trump, you take that to mean, okay, that he's specifically talking about white supremacists. Now, rightly or wrongly, okay, other people may hear that same soundbite because the world is all of the information we're getting now is being filtered. None of it is pure, and I can't stress that enough.
But you can't have one without the other. Monica, you can't have one without the other.
Listen,
this is the world we're living in.
But one person may hear that same soundbite and think, he wasn't talking about white supremacists. He was saying, in spite of the white supremacists, we have good people on both sides, okay? That's what they may have come away thinking, all right? And the reason I say that is if you look, are we really supposed to believe, looking at the polling that came out of this election, we have Trump support going from 8% of black people to 12%, going up to 32% of the Latino vote, doubling his share of the gay and lesbian vote to 28%. These are disenfranchised groups. Are we really supposed to think that all of these people interpreted that statement you just made the way you just interpreted? It is possible. I don't think all of these people are stupid. I don't think that they're all voting against their best interests. I don't think that gays are homophobic and blacks and Latinos are racist against their own kind. Well, certainly not in these numbers. I think that they heard that soundbite and they thought, oh, he's talking about the white supremacists. And we can all agree that white supremacists are crazy, but most people are good. And they moved on about their business. That's what I think happened. Now, I understand you may disagree, but I'm giving you another way to look at this that might explain the polling we're seeing that showed Trump didn't lose these people in large margins. He increased his support among every single voting group except one. Do you know the voting group he actually didn't improve on, he actually lost with? Did you check the exit polls? What was that group?
White
the group was white men. The only group of voters he lost ground with is the one in this country that holds the most privilege. None of this makes sense. It's not following the narrative we're giving you, Jason.
Well, the polls, yeah, I mean, that's an interesting thing to look at because the polls have been off now two elections in a row, which is
right?
which is so strange. I mean, my theory on this, and tell me what you think. My theory is that based on, if we're talking about white men, which I know something about, being a white man for the most part, is that, since we're used to, being on top, as it were, of the food chain and running things and being in power for so many years in this country, I think there's a sense of none of your business. I don't need to answer your questions. I don't need to I'm not going to tell you, you know what I mean? If a pollster calls, and I see this a lot, and I don't mean to pigeonhole baby boomers, but especially men of that age group seem really rebellious. They really just, they're so entrenched in their rights and their No, I'm an American, man. You know what I mean? Like,
Then why would Trump have lost support with these people? That's what makes no sense.
well, I just think that's why the polls are off. But this is the other interesting thing about that is that some of those men obviously didn't vote for Trump as president, but they still voted Republican on the ticket. Down the ticket, they still voted for their senators and their congressmen. And that's the other interesting
Oh,
thing.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
And that's the other interesting
definitely.
thing about this outcome too that confuses me. And I want to get back to what we were just talking about again. But as a side note,
Hmm.
the fact that these people are not acknowledging Joe Biden as president elect and shouting cheating and shouting fraud and shouting criminal at the Democratic Party is so fascinating to me because if you look at the other races, they're not complaining about any of that. They're not complaining about, it looks like they
Well,
may.
that's not true.
Oh, so
That's actually not
so
true.
you have heard that people are thinking that all of it was rigged, as not just the
No, no,
top of
I'm
the
not
ticket.
saying no, no, no. I'm not saying that. And this is probably a conversation for another interview,
Oh, okay.
another day. But I will say that yeah, yeah. Well, I will say that there's at least I forgot one of the races. That's on the tip of my tongue. I haven't had my coffee today. But you recall John James? I think it's Michigan. He was um, he was running for Congress in Michigan. Do you recall him? He's a young black man, Army vet. You
No,
familiar with him?
no, for Congress or for
So
Senate?
yes, Congress. Yeah,
Okay.
well, yeah, in Congress.
I'm sorry, House
You
of
know,
Representatives.
I unfortunately have to. Yeah. So my recollection is, and unfortunately I wasn't prepared to talk about this, but my recollection is that on election night he was up. I mean, it's like 15, 20 points. It was crazy, and people went to bed and they woke up and he was racing for his life and he eventually lost.
Hmm.
And people were trying to figure out how that happened when, in Michigan in particular, mail-in ballots were counted first, which were supposedly where he would have been weakest. Because
Was he running
I
as a
think I think
Democrat or a Republican?
yeah, he was running against a Democrat. He is a Republican. See, he's a black Republican.
Okay.
So this is interesting. So in Michigan, the mail-in ballots were counted first. All right. So I think the
Which
understanding that
leaned
you and I and most
Democrat,
people
yeah.
had is that the Democrats had an advantage with mail-in ballots, right?
Hmm.
So if he was up ahead, I don't know how many, 15, 20 points at when we all went to bed and the mail-in ballots had been counted, by the time the in-person ballots were, had been tabulated, people assumed that, okay, he's really going to win. He ended up losing. So there's another race that you know what, I'm going to have to
But
get back to you
that
offline,
makes
but there's
sense
at
to
least
me.
one
If
other
he's
race
if
that's
if
happened
he's
left.
running as a Republican, and the mail-in ballots were were leaning Democrat, Republicans showed up on the day of election, and that's how he pulled ahead once all of those were tallied. So that makes sense to me.
But no, but that's not exactly what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that in Michigan, he was ahead. Not only were the Republicans ahead in the number of mail-in ballots requested, they were ahead in the number, at least in his little district, they were ahead in the number of mail-in ballots actually received.
Hmm.
That's what makes this unusual. So, I mean, it's something that I think, I invite you to look in a little deeper. And again, I'm more than happy to get into it in another call.
Sure.
But
And there's going to be
I will say
anomalies,
that
for
it's
goodness
not.
sake. I was
Yeah,
speaking more
no,
generally,
absolutely.
Yeah.
There are anomalies. I was just speaking to the fact that it is not just the Trump Biden results that are being challenged. Others are being challenged. I don't know what's going to come of it. I mean, nothing may come of it. But the point is, I just wanted to, be accurate about what is actually being challenged, and there's lawsuits being filed right now as we speak. Personally, I wouldn't be surprised, given what I saw in 2000 with Bush v. Gore. I wouldn't be surprised to see this go to the Supreme Court. Why? Here's why I think so. Don't hold me to it, but this is what I'm thinking. Back then, we had one state, a single state, Florida,
Hmm.
and the only issue, and it went on for more than a month.
The
The only
hanging
issue
chads,
was
yeah. Hmm.
hanging chads. It was a close race. We need a recount. Should we have a recount? All this, do you remember the seniors in Palm Beach? They were confused. Am I voting for Gore? Am I voting for Bush? It was a confusing ballot.
Sure,
There
sure.
was no allegation of fraud. No allegation of fraud. Just allegation of, look, it's a close race. give us a recount. And what I objected to, as I was a big Gore supporter, what I objected to was the Supreme Court twisted, bastardized the Equal Protection Clause in a way it never had been before and never has since.
Agreed. And
Bush v. Gore
I mean, that was the election that made me question the whole
exactly.
system. Yeah.
Exactly. It was a turning point for me, Jason. And anyway, the Supreme Court gave the election to Bush by stopping the recount. For 35 days, the nation held its breath while that happened.
But see, during those 35 days, I don't remember them ever calling Gore the president-elect. Like, it just wasn't done yet.
They did.
Really?
They
okay.
did.
I don't remember that part.
You can go.
I remember.
They did.
I remember it. Somehow them finagling it into the Supreme Court's hands, and then they gave it to Bush, and so I felt like I had been robbed as an American.
And I felt robbed because they did call him president-elect. But the thing is, that brings into another issue: who calls president-elect? The media calls a president-elect. They create this expectation, and then everyone's like, "Oh, okay, well, you must be president-elect." But all I'm trying to say is the distinction here, the distinction between 2000 and 2020 is we were talking about a single state that just rested on a recount. Here we're talking about multiple states. We're talking about 5 states where there are allegations of fraud, okay? Again, I don't know how it's going to turn out, but I'm just looking, as a lawyer, I'm thinking, if this case went to the Supreme Court based on the facts in 2000, given what's being alleged now, I can't imagine it's not going to end up in the Supreme Court. Biden may still be president. Who knows?
It doesn't matter what's alleged. Look, I learned a long time ago, people can say whatever they want. If the facts are not there, I still want to believe that the Supreme Court will either not take it because there's no there, or they will put look, I mean. Well,
that's a very high standard. That's a very, 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 you should just know that in order for the Supreme Court not to take the case, there would have to be virtually no facts that would support the allegation.
Exactly.
It would almost have to be frivolous. And I don't think
so far there are no facts. Where are the facts?
I know, but we don't know. We're going to find out a lot this week, Jason. Why? Because these cases were just filed today. So you and I should follow this very closely because the cases that have been filed will have to set forth with specificity the facts. Either they're there or they're not.
Exactly.
But I guarantee you, if the Supreme Court, I think there's a good chance the Supreme Court takes it. We'll see. We'll see.
And we're going to come back. We're going to talk about this some more because, look, one of the things that I want to talk about with you is what you've been seeing on Facebook and the exchanges, that you've got your finger on the pulse out there a little more so than I. I want to hear some about that. And I also want to talk more about the Supreme Court and this tone, right, that we've been getting from the Republicans these past 4 years of sort of like victim. Right? I mean, they have control of the White House, they have control of the Senate, they have control of the Supreme Court, and yet somehow there's still this ubiquitous notion that the Democrats are in charge somehow, or that they're somehow controlling things, or that they're somehow, they have their hands tied because of the Democrats. So I want to get your perspective on that. So stay with us. We're gonna be back in just a moment for our very special segment, What the World Needs Now, and that is today a little bit of Nana Goat. So stay with us right here on Common Ground, KHTS 98.1 FM and AM 1220.
Santa Clarita Valley residents now have greater access to the excellent physicians and high-quality medical services for which Providence Holy Cross is known. Providence Holy Cross Health Center in Santa Clarita features state-of-the-art cancer and imaging technologies, as well as board-certified physicians in a variety of medical specialties. Quality and compassion from a healthcare provider you can depend on. For more information, call 1-888-HEALING or visit us at providence.org.
We all know sometimes people lose their way. If you or someone you know is struggling with addiction, the Way Out Recovery SCV may have the answers you've been waiting for. The Way Out is the premier intensive outpatient treatment center serving Santa Clarita. Asking for help is the first step. Call The Way Out today, 661-296-4444. That's 296-4444 for a private free assessment. The Way Out is an accredited, affordable outpatient program that accepts most insurance. call us at 661-296-4444 or check us out online at thewayoutrrecoveryscv.com. Quit battling with yourself. Ask The Way Out for help today.
Time for a car wash, but fearful of the scratches that go along with it? Canny Car Wash and Valencia Car Wash proudly use 100% lamb's cloth to prevent scratches and provide the best wash possible. Both locations use environmentally friendly solutions to wash and wax your vehicle, and they both accept all other car wash coupons. Give your vehicle the wash it deserves. Visit Canny Car Wash on Soledad across from Edwards Cinema, or Valencia Car Wash on Creekside Road behind Target.
Your hometown station, KHTS.
What the world needs now is love, sweet love.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Common Ground. I'm Jason Downs. Thanks for being here. So here's our new segment, What the World Needs Now, right? But first, one of our wonderful sponsors is the law offices of Lou Espin. When experience counts, count on experience at espinlaw.com. That's ESBINLAW.com. 35 years serving this community. You can reach Lou at 661-254-5050. And now, it's my pleasure to introduce Nana.
Hi, darling. How are you today?
I am doing great, my dear. How are you?
Very good. First of all, I have a message for you from an admirer.
Oh, my. Okay. Well, that sounds good.
So
what's the
you
message?
get to have love from Asia.
Oh, okay. Well, I give her my love as well. She's one of my favorite people, just like you. Mo, too, Mother of the Universe.
That's correct.
We have Colleen McCorkle here, the almighty wise woman, backed by popular demand. So tell us, my favorite first question for you, just tell us what you think the world needs now since last we spoke. What does the world need?
Okay, I think we actually all just need to take a deep breath and then let it out and go on. I think we've all been kind of holding our breath for so long that we didn't even know we were turning blue. So we just need to breathe. That's my advice for today.
So true, so true. I felt such relief, and you're right. I didn't realize how tense I was until I felt some of that release. And also, I think I know how the Democrats stole the election. Tell me what you think. It's all those masks that they're wearing, right? Because we can't recognize them. They just snuck right in under our noses and stole the election.
I'm telling you, it's the hardest thing in the world for me to understand why you just can't put on your freaking mask. And I did say freaking. See, I was a good girl.
Thank you. Yeah, the FCC is very proud. Yeah.
You just need to wear your mask because it's so incredibly important.
No, you're right.
And it's not a big deal. Come on.
You're right. And this goes exactly to what we were talking about last time, too. We talked about loving yourself, right? Remember? And
yes.
And one of your superpowers,
absolutely.
One of your superpowers is compassion for oneself, right? And it's really a bridge to having compassion for others. I was talking about this last week with Jeff Bomberger, who has written a book on the subject called Awakening Soul Force, and he took me through a guided meditation and everything, a great way to get in tune with this kind of compassion that allows you to love other people and be open and interested in seeing things from their perspective. And we need that more than ever. I imagine.
Oh my God, we do.
Right?
And you know what's an incredible tie-in here is that Jeff is one of my people.
Yes, he
I've
is.
known Jeff since he was a little tiny boy.
Yes,
he and Weston were best friends, and I nurtured him and loved him and his parents. And isn't this just amazing?
And look at what it
manifested. Small little world we live in.
Yes, and look at what he's manifesting. It's beautiful. I imagine.
I know.
I imagine you felt, a similar way during the Civil War, and I want to know how you picked up the pieces once it ended. And I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I know. I'm kidding.
I was just going to have to come over there and slap you.
No, you're 80.
You were going to get slapped.
You're 80 years young. I know. No, I'm teasing. But
82, darling. 82.
I stand corrected. But we
That's
look
all
at
right.
we look at how divided the country is, right? And you obviously you lived right through the civil rights movement. 55 years ago. It's only been 55 years. And we've come a long way, right? Seems like now might be another valley on our way to another mountaintop, hopefully, like Dr. Martin Luther King envisioned for us. But we've come a long way, right? As far as how we treat our African American brothers and sisters.
And we have a long way to go, and we need to not get in too big of a hurry, because we have a lot of little areas to fill with love and compassion and nourishing and all that. And I remember vividly the first little black girl that was allowed in school, in public school.
Brown versus the Board of Education, Little Rock, Arkansas.
And I can just remember how absolutely amazing it was to me, because in my family, growing up through the Depression and stuff, there were no color boundaries at all. I didn't even know that it was such a thing, and it's just so strange to see the hate and discontent and upset and everything. We all just need to mellow out and be who we are and be awake.
Well, so you may not have grown up with it, but certainly as you became an adult and worked with other people and learned about the world, how did you handle disputes among family members or your kids or coworkers or clients when they had opposite views of the world like we're seeing now?
Well, mainly if it were my children or people that were very, very close to me, I just would not allow it. I would just say, you have got to stop talking right now, and you need to use your ears twice as much as you use your mouth. That's why you have two. You need to listen. You need to listen to what's going on around you and be aware of the words that you're saying. It's amazing. But then with coworkers and things, that I couldn't be that demanding or forceful, I would listen, and I would usually say, huh. And they would say, what does that mean? And I'd say, I don't think you're ready to know what that means. And I think maybe this should be a subject that we don't talk about at work.
All right,
or whatever.
But it goes back to that breath that you started out talking about. When you would hear that with your kids or your family, you say, take a breath and listen. Okay.
Absolutely.
What is your...
I wanted to tell you one thing, and I won't go into the whole story because it's way too long for your radio program, but I just, when I'm back to the part about being awake, I was on a flight one time from the East Coast to the West Coast. It was in 1983, and I was sitting next to a gentleman in first class. I just happened to have first class tickets, and he was very, very sad. And I wanted to read my book. I so wanted to read my book, but he was so sad I couldn't handle it. And so I just kind of leaned over and said, is there anything that I can do to help you? And he said, no, there's nothing anybody can do. And I said, I so doubt that. I think you need to just stop a minute and think about what you're saying. There are so many things that can be done. Anyway, long story short, we talked from the East Coast to the West Coast, and in 1984, that same gentleman called me where I worked for the state and said, I have a favor. I said, and what is that? He said, I want you to run Orange County for me during the Olympics.
Wow.
And this is what I mean by being awake, being aware. I could have read my book and not said a thing, but I didn't. And then we talked and talked and talked, And then I had the experience of the Olympics in Orange County, ran 5 venues, had the best time of my life because I was awake.
And because one of your superpowers is compassion for
Exactly.
yourself and others. Yes. So
Exactly.
is that your dream for your children, your grandchildren, the future of this country? That just compassion and listening and breathing together collectively?
Absolutely. And just, mainly being aware. And like I said before, we need to listen. We need to listen to each other because we all have so much to say. And some of us are just dying to get it out and never have the opportunity because they're not self-confident or whatever, and just don't get a chance like you or I do.
Well, how do you think that applies to social media? I mean, I know that's a fairly new development in human, in our culture. Obviously, wasn't around for most of your life, past 10 years, probably.
Oh, God, yeah.
So,
my parents didn't even have TV until I was in college. So we lived in the country, but still. And so to me, I'm guilty. I'm on my cell phone and, answering text and doing everything all the time, too. However, I think with our younger people, we need to allow them to know how important they all are all by themselves and to not be so involved with others constantly. If we don't get to know ourselves, and we are wonderful, we are absolutely amazing. And that's what I told my children from the time that they were little and could even understand me. You are amazing. And it's so fun when you grow up that way. That's the way I grew up, and I know I'm amazing. And it's so wonderful to know that.
And there she is. Nana, much love. Much love to you. It's so great to have you here. I'm so glad you
Oh, honey, I'm
you
so
agreed.
glad.
It's a balm. You know what I mean? It's such a sweet salve. So I hope you'll agree to come back, and much love to you. I'll speak to you very soon. Please stay where you are. I'll be right back in just a moment. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be speaking to Monica Harris again right here on KHTS 98.1 FM and AM 1220.
Oh.
Is love, sweet love. It's the only thing that there's just too little love.
ABC7 helps you get ready for the holidays. All this week, watch ABC7 Eyewitness News at 6 a.m. for the code word and enter at abc7.com/win for your chance to win a $100 gift card. Every day is a new chance to win.
This week on Wheel of Fortune, love is everywhere.
Oh my gosh, yes.
From puppy love.
I have a 1-year-old cattle dog, and I'm obsessed with him.
And you love your husband, too.
He's pretty good.
To looking for love.
I am a dog mom, code for single, not married, no kids.
Any inquiries will forward to you.
And your love.
Zany Laney. I'm also known as the Lobster Roll Queen.
May I call you Lobster Queen?
You can call me anything you'd like.
Tonight at 7:30.
From ABC7.
This holiday season,
you can help light the spark of love
for thousands of kids all over Southern California.
Just text SPARK to 24365 or go to abc7.com Spark of Love.
This year, heroes give here.
Consumers Furniture is back open for your business. The safety of our community and our staff, above all, is most important to us. We will provide a safe and clean environment for you to find the perfect piece of furniture for your home. To help you with your purchase, we are offering 25% off your entire order or 24 months same as cash financing. And for our awesome essential workers, we will deliver locally your furniture free of charge. Consumers Furniture is located in the Centerpoint Shopping Center below Sam's Club and Walmart.
I listen to it all day, every day.
Hometown, your hometown station.
Welcome back. This is Common Ground. I'm Jason Downs. So good to have you here. With me is Monica Harris, author, activist, attorney. How's it going, Monica? What'd you think? What'd you think of Nana?
She's a hoot. I know why you have her back. She is like a balm.
She is, isn't she?
Very soothing. Yes, yes.
So, in relation to what I brought up with her just a moment ago, I know that you have, you sort of, I mean, it almost sounds like you kind of do this as a practice to keep your finger on the pulse of what's going on out there. You have these Facebook exchanges and on social media, et cetera. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's it's so funny. My partner often chastises me for it. She's like, why are you going on Facebook when you know people are going to disagree with you? And I'm like, you know what? I think that we've lost the art of respectful discourse.
Civil discourse. That's what we want. Yes.
That's what we want.
Yes.
And that's what I do. And I am so happy. I know so many people, Jason, who literally did these flash polls right before the election. If you're not for us, if you're not voting this way, I'm defriending you. And I never do that. I get into not vicious. I get into very spirited debates with people who aren't so nice to me. And I always try to remain respectful because it's important to me to maintain a foot on both sides of the divide. I think that's the only way I, to my personal satisfaction, can really get a sense of what's going on in this world. As I mentioned, because facts, information is so filtered. I can't rely on what I see on Fox, CNN, MSNBC, any of it. I want to talk to people on both sides.
Very
and
important.
It's been fascinating.
Very important. No, I totally agree with you. We need to not be afraid of hearing folks' ideas, whether they're different from ours or not. I think that's what this country at its essence should be about. So what have you found? What have you found? Tell us about some of your exchanges and what your sense is then.
Oh,
are people being shamed
well,
and harassed?
People are totally being harassed. On Facebook this morning, actually it was yesterday, one of my acquaintances had the temerity to say that, I've done a careful analysis of both candidates. She's a Democrat, but she's done a careful analysis and said, you know what? I don't like Biden. I don't like Trump. And you know what? I'm not voting. And she agonized over it for months, apparently. And I would say half of the people who responded were respectful and like, I wish we could count you on our team, but, understand. But what surprised me is that there were a handful who were just vitriolic. And one of these people actually said, if you don't vote for the quote-unquote the right candidate, that's effectively or de facto a vote for the quote-unquote wrong candidate. And I'm no longer patronizing your business. She has a small business. And I'm thinking, this is dangerous. This is a very, very slippery slope we're going into right now. And I remember when I was growing up, I don't know if you, Jason, were about the same age, more or less. You remember there used to be a time where there were subjects people didn't discuss, two subjects, religion and politics, right? Because we're like, you know what? We're just going to keep it to ourselves, keep it personal, keep it. But then we got to this point where people are like, you know what? We can talk about it. We can have respectful discourse about politics. But now we can't even have the respectful discourse. It's crazy. We brought it out in the open. Everyone's, we're willing to talk about it, but no one can talk about it respectfully anymore.
Do you think this
goes
back?
We've got to get away from that.
I agree. But do you think this goes back to what we've talked about many times as well, which is the role of social media and the media at large? We've talked a lot about how it gives space to a lot of hypothesis, right? A lot of conspiracy, a lot of self-interested sort of news. Whether you're the owner of a large news network like Fox or CNN or whatever, or whether you're living in a trailer in Montana and want to put your beliefs. I mean, do you think that plays a huge part in this?
Absolutely do. I absolutely do, because I think, and you and I talked about The Social Dilemma. It's a powerful documentary that if your listeners haven't seen, they need to see it, because it explains, I think, so viscerally, so well, exactly how these big tech companies like Facebook, Twitter, and whatnot are filtering the information we receive based on our personal political preferences. And a perfect example is,
Well, hold on though. It's not political though. The social dilemma was very specific that their motives are not political. Their motives are
no. I didn't
dollar signs.
I didn't talk about the motives. It's not about their motives. What they're doing though is they're filtering information to users based on their political affiliation. So the algorithm says, "Oh, you're a Biden supporter. I'm going to get you this. Oh, you're a Trump supporter.
Sending you more of that. You're right.
So
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's the point. Yeah.
Give you more of
whatever it is,
want.
whether it's outdoor furniture or
right.
QAnon, they're going to send you more of what you look at. Yeah.
Perfect example. You are one of the most informed people out there, and you, however, were thinking you were under the impression that Trump was the only Trump. Trump was the only candidate challenging the election results. Now, over the break, I just sent you 2 articles, one from NPR that shows that John James, he is a Michigan GOP Senate candidate. He's refusing to concede because he claims numerous irregularities, but you hadn't heard that, had you? And that doesn't make you stupid. It doesn't make you uninformed. It means that the sources of information you're going to aren't giving you all the information. For example,
well, and let me defend my earlier statement, though. I want to clarify. I'm not saying that. There are always going to be someone who contests or recounts, on both sides. That's totally normal. What I was trying to say is abnormal is for a sitting president to make, just wild accusations and hurl, cast doubt upon a process which everyone was looking at so carefully this time. Do you know what I mean? And in my opinion and from my perspective, I think that's careless. If you want to recount, ask for a recount. If you want to file a case in a specific area because you have actual evidence, please do that. So don't misunderstand. I know that's a normal occurrence. Go on.
Yeah. Anyway, so it all goes back to the point that social media is definitely, I think, inflaming people by presenting us with different realities. At this point, there are 2 Americas, and we may as well be living in alternate universes. Not because and this is the thing. This gets us back to what I always and you always want to talk about, which is fine. We have this problem. What is the solution? Yeah. How do we get beyond this divide? And what I lay out in my book, and it's the way I was raised. My parents are very good about raising me this way, but I've learned whenever I meet anyone, I walk into a room, I'm almost always different. I'm the gay black woman. There are not a lot of people like me. So what I instantly do is focus on what do I have in common with these people? Mm-hmm. My father always tried to get me to learn sports and talk that language. Never worked for me. So I went to movies and other things, to find some sort of commonality. But that's what we need to do now. We are so focused on thinking, well, you're different from me because of X, Y, Z. All right, well, fine, you're different from me. But we've gotten to the point now where we have to start focusing on what do you like that I like? What do you want that I want? And right now, I think if people could set aside their obsession with, race, sexual orientation, homophobia, and all of that, and just ask themselves one question. What's affecting all of us now? Oh, I know what's affecting all of us. Every single one of us right now is struggling to get by with our housing costs, our health care costs, our food costs, our education. And it's not just blacks and Latinos and gay people and women. 99% of all Americans are struggling with this. Yet this wasn't the focus of the campaign. The focus of the campaign was everything but this. And it's all for me, Jason. It's always been about this: the money. What's going on in the heart of our financial system? That 99% of us are slipping down the tubes at a frightening pace, and we're not talking about it because we're too divided and at each other's throats.
It's true.
We need to wake up.
And like we keep saying, we do have so much more in common. Like, look, like, for instance, this idea that Democrats somehow want to defund the police or abolish immigration enforcement. It's not true. We all want the same thing. We just don't want people to be killed unnecessarily. We don't want people sneaking in here from other countries. Nobody wants those things. And to that point, what I was impressed by during this election was that in a lot of red states, They passed laws to raise the minimum wage. They passed laws to decriminalize marijuana and expand Medicaid, all causes associated with Democrats usually. Like you said.
That's right. We're smoking marijuana in Montana now. We're smoking marijuana.
Like you said, let's focus on what we agree on, right? What can we agree needs to be fixed, right? Can we agree that the coronavirus needs to be fixed? I mean, I lived in New York City during 9/11, right? I know what it looks like when Americans come together, and it feels good. It feels good. That was an amazing, it was a horrible event, but it felt so good to see not just the city rally around itself, but the country rally around itself. And I thought that's what would happen around the virus. We all want the same thing. We all want it to be handled and to get it out of, get on with our lives, right? We've got more cases than ever now, doubled since September, more than any other country ever. People are still out there saying we're overdoing it, et cetera. Well, okay, we're overdoing it to get rid of the damn thing so we can get on with our lives. And if everyone would just overdo it for a certain amount of time for the greater good, and then we could all get on with our lives. And like you say, yes, we all agree that we want everyone to be able to provide for their families, right? We want everyone to be able to contribute to the economy. We all want those things. So hey, let's leave it there for now. I think we're out of time, but Monica Harris at letsgetunplugged.com, and please check out her book. It's well worth the read. It's called Reality Bites: Insights on Bridging the American Divide, precisely what we're talking about today. Monica, thank you so much. And as always,
thank you for having me, Jason. Always a pleasure.
It's a pleasure. Always, I'd like to thank my sponsors again, Denny & Company and the law offices of Lou Espin, the amazing staff here at KHTS, the owners, Jerry and Carl, our fantastic engineer, Patty St. Patrick, and to be sure and join me next week as we continue a civil discourse, as always, with a focus on unity, civility, friendship. A pleasure to have you here on Common Ground, where we can always agree on the important stuff. I'm Jason Downs. You're listening to KHTS. Until next time, stay safe, stay informed, and stay positive.